Are there any first-timers here for the first time at the folk school? Yeah. All right, at least one. Well, my name is Jack Smoot. This is my beautiful wife, Sally Blankenship. And we're here to tell you not only our love story between the two of us, but also the love story that we have with this folk school and with so many friends. I'm going to have a hard time not breaking up here. And it's also a cautionary tale for you new folks, because the folk school will change you. It'll grab a hold of you. It did us. And it's done a lot of other people that way too. It's changed our lives, and it's changed many lives. And so I'm going to turn it over to Sally.
Well, before we start with our story, I do have one request of you as the audience. Our story goes back a little ways, and we're going to be showing photographs from 40 years ago. So our request is that you refrain from saying, "That's you, I didn't recognize you, you look so young." I can't stop you from thinking it, but just please don't say it aloud. It could hurt our feelings. So our story starts separately and comes together a little bit later, but my story starts back in the mid-1980s. And I was living in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, with my husband and my two young sons. And the husband, by the way, was not Jack Smoot, was a different husband. But my older son, 5 years old, was in the throes of autism, and our younger son, age 3, was in the throes of basically being himself, which was a strong-willed and unhappy being in the world. And I decided, with absolutely no art or craft experience, that I needed to do something with my hands. And serendipitously, I was cleaning out some things, and I found my Easter basket from childhood. And this, I'm not sure, my grandmother gave it to me back in the early 50s. Joanne's looking at it. You can examine it. I'm not sure why she chose to paint it, dip it blue, but it was from Appalachia. I knew that because she made some frequent trips up to North Carolina from her home in South Carolina. And I thought that finding this Easter basket was a sign that that's what I should pursue. Also serendipitously, as I was reading Southern Living, as one does, there was an article on Ken and Kathleen Dalton, who lived in Coker Creek, Tennessee, and taught white oak basketry. Well, this is a white oak basket. This is exactly what I was looking for. And so I read, and it seems that Ken and Kathleen taught at Airmont, at Appalachian Center for Crafts, and at the John C. Campbell Folk School. Living in southeast Missouri, I was not familiar with any of the three, but I did write them. This was pre-internet, y'all will recall. And Airmont and Appalachian Center offered lovely one-week classes. John C. Campbell offered two-week class. I wanted to get the hell out of Dodge for 2 weeks instead of one, so that's how I happened to choose the folk school. There you have it. So, I'll pick that up in a minute. In July of 1989, I was driving a Ford station wagon. I packed that thing to the gills. I baked, believe it or not, 13 casseroles, put them in the freezer, and arranged for childcare for my two sons with family and with sitters for 2 full weeks. It was quite the talk of the town. I was told that I left my 2 young children for 2 weeks, but I did. Yes, and here at the folk school, the visit here in 1986 was a watershed. I met such interesting people. I met such generous people. I met people whose values were not exactly what I was used to. Probably the most memorable person for me that year was a woman who had just come back to the States after living in France, in the Pyrenees, in a yurt with her shepherd lover. And, you know, we just didn't do that in Cape Girardeau. It was,
Couldn't find a yurt?
yeah, couldn't find a yurt. No yurt. So, I just was amazed at a whole world opening up to me. I made two such good friends, Ida Palmerball and Terrell Peel. And for that 2 weeks, the three of us became inseparable. And we were together morning, noon, and night. And we, I don't know who dubbed us the Three Basketeers, but that was what we were, that was the name we were given throughout those 2 weeks. End of 2 weeks, we're right out there in the Keys House parking lot. It's time to go home, and we are standing there hugging one another, crying. We do not want to leave one another. So the best we could do was pledge to one another that we would be back the following year to take Ken and Kathleen Dalton's basketry class and be together, and we would stay in touch throughout the year, which we did. On the way home, through my tears, whoops, thank you, I had bought a cassette from a local group, Irons in the Fire. There is one song in particular, "When the frost has killed the kudzu, I'll be coming home to you." I sang that song through my tears, and I kept this in my car and played it on the way to the folk school and on the way home from the folk school in subsequent years. Still have it. Got to meet the guy who wrote it. He lives with it too.
Dave Peters.
So the Daltons taught for 2 more years, and then I don't know if they were tired of us or they really wanted to retire, but we had no basketry instructor here at the folk school. So we petitioned the folk school to give us a studio and let us come back, bring all our own equipment, all our own gear. We promised we would be good, and we would make white oak baskets. So in 1989, it was kind of a banner year. It was the first year of independent study for the Three Basketeers, who, by the way, had just become the Basketeers when a fourth person joined, Betsy Orlando from New York. So the 4 of us were inseparable. 1989 was also the year that I was divorced, but 1989 is the year I met Jack Smoot.
And the story that I got from Sally's family is her mom told her, "Now, you're going to be gone for 2 weeks, going to be away from your family, it's okay if you cry." And the only time she cried was when she had to go home. Well, my story begins with the dulcimer, with the mountain dulcimer. I was already divorced at this point, but I had a beautiful daughter, Tasha, and I had taken Tasha on a vacation kind of out through the southeast, and we made a stop at Dollywood in Sevierville, Tennessee. And we were in the luthier's shop there, and I saw her plucking around on a mountain dulcimer. And I tucked that away because I had always wished that someone had encouraged me to play an instrument when I was young. Music has been huge in my life, and I wanted her to have an opportunity. So not long after that, someone actually gave me a whole pile of woodworking magazines, and there was happened to be an article in there on how to build a mountain dulcimer. So instead of just building one for her, it was just as easy to build 2. And we started going to festivals down in Mountain View, Arkansas, and in Memphis, Tennessee. And then eventually we learned about a dulcimer club that met there in southeast Missouri where we were living, Wildwood Dulcimer Club. And Tasha and I joined that group and started attending regularly. And that's where I met Sally. We had a mutual friend who happened to be one of the members of this club. And Sally had come back from the folk school all excited about hearing dulcimer music and wanted to hear more dulcimer music. And Judy said, well, you know that I play the dulcimer. And Sally said, no. And she said, there's a group and you could come. And so I said, okay. And so she showed up, and that's how we met. At the time, I was dating someone else, and I was kind of picking up on these vibes, but I didn't pursue anything because I was dating someone else.
I didn't know he was dating someone else, just for the record.
So anyway, we started to get to know each other through the Dulcimer Club there, and Sally thought, I wonder if I were to buy a dulcimer kit, and I could ask Jack to help me build it, and then we could spend more time together. This is that unfinished dulcimer. When she pulled it out, she had already started working on it, and the instructions had said to firmly press the frets into the fretboard. And she so firmly pressed them in there that they were barely visible on the top of the, which means that they couldn't function as a fret. But it worked. We spent time together, more time. I broke up with
What's her name?
What's her name?
well, I'm going to leave the names out to protect the innocent here, but by 1990, we were a pretty solid couple. So I'll turn it back over to Sally.
Well, from my perspective, there were a few things that were going to be more or less deal breakers for this relationship getting to be more serious. One of them was Jack's acceptance of my two sons. And the other was I needed to be with a partner who shared my love of the folk school. This was not manipulative by any means. It was just, what one does. So I gifted Jack with registration to a class at the folk school. You've got to stand the test. So Jack chose a class with the resident dulcimer builder, Herger Knight, and came out in December 1991 on his own. I wanted him to fall in love with it without any pressure. But,
that was already there.
Here's the postcard he sent me. And among other things, he says, "This place is really great. I can understand why you're so drawn to it as strongly as you are. See you soon. Love, Jack."
And I did. I fell in love with the school. I came and took the class with Herger. I was captured by the magic of this place. And I was really looking forward to coming back. The first few years that Sally left to spend 2 weeks with the Basketeers, that was hard for me. We were, early into our relationship, and we would call and talk to each other, and it was tough. But we ended up getting married in 1992, 5292. That's my little memory thing for remembering. And we actually jumped over a Carlson Tuttle broom at our wedding. We have a picture, but it was just our legs in the broom, so we didn't put it up on that. And I also built Sally a courting dulcimer as a wedding gift. We don't have that with us now, but I don't know how many of you know what a cording dulcimer is, but it's a larger instrument that actually has 2 fretboards on it, and they were meant to be played with the couple sitting facing each other with this instrument on their lap, and this allowed them to be in the parlor by themselves, because as long as the parents could hear music, they knew everyone's hands were busy, and there wasn't any hanky-panky going on. So that was the story on a cording dulcimer. And a little while after our wedding, we arranged to take a honeymoon to Sam A. Baker State Park, which is in southeast Missouri. I was working for the park system at the time. And so one of the things that we did while we were there enjoying our honeymoon cabin is to learn how to play a song. We got the arrangement at a Memphis Dulcimer Festival that we'd gone to, and we'd like to play this tune for you. Flip yours down a little bit.
but we love to play
Yeah,
it.
fine. That tune is known by a couple of titles. One is Love Me Tender, Elvis Presley, and the other one is Aura Lee. And the reason that they were teaching that at the Memphis Dulcimer Festival is because they were in Memphis. We were in Memphis, and they wanted to teach an Elvis Presley song, but they didn't want to pay royalties. And when we were at the cabin at Sam A. Baker State Park, and we were learning this, it's hard to tell because we were mic'd, but our instruments are really soft. They don't really generate a lot of volume. And we were sitting out in front of our cabin playing away for several hours, and there was a cabin across the way that was kind of a party cabin. They had about 6 or 8 couples all staying in the same cabin. And they were out there grilling steaks and kind of, rubbernecking, looking at us over in front of our cabin. And then they went in and ate their steaks, and the next thing I knew, I looked over and there were people pulling the curtains back and looking to see, what was. And finally, this small contingent of them came over and they said, "Are you really playing those instruments, or are we on candid camera here? We can't hear anything, but we see you playing." And we said, "Oh no, we're playing you." And so we invited them over, and we played some tunes for them, and all was good. But yeah, that was a pretty funny happening. I did become good friends with Herbert Knight, the resident dulcimer builder here, and he was the one that actually recommended me to, as a possible instructor, to come and teach dulcimer building. So I started coming to the folk school about once a year, sometime in the mid to late 90s. I think I've got it pegged down to 90, but I'm not sure. At any rate, so that was really good, and I think we have a picture. Yeah, there's a picture of Herger and me at the workbench in the wood shop. And it also happens that because I married into the Basketeers, I got to come when the Basketeers met, and so I started coming and bringing some projects to work on in the studio with the Basketeers. I built some dulcimers, did some jewelry, and sometimes I would bring an instrument to sit around and play. But it was always fun, and there was also a wood carving class that was taught by Elmer Tangerman, and he and his daughter Judy Hickson. They would be in that class with several people, and it was a bit of a reunion class too. And when Tangerman decided to quit teaching, a lot of those folks from the wood carving class decided to switch roles and come over and be Basketeers, and that's when we met folks like Rooney Floyd and his Marilyn, yes, Marilyn, and there were a few others too. Judy, I think, Basketeer once or twice, didn't she? So anyway, that was the continuing tradition.
By early 2000s, the staff at the school was getting a little concerned that this reunion group appeared exclusive, and no one wanted that. So the Basketeers agreed to put it as an open class in the catalog, welcoming any and all. So by the year 2002, it appeared as an open independent study in the catalog. Those of us who had been coming for so long wondered who in the world would come, pay full tuition, have no instruction whatsoever, and have to bring all his or her own equipment and supplies. And we thought, well, bring it on. If someone does that, we're more than happy to have them. Well, it ends up that a lot of people wanted to. A lot of people wanted to be in an independent studies setting. And so by 2019, we had our record year of students. There were 13 students called the Basketeers in the wet room, and each was pursuing a different craft. The list is long. But I also have to say, by then, not one person was making baskets. So, I failed to show. This was the very first basket I ever made in 1986 from that log that you saw Terrell and me cut down. But it's pretty labor intensive. Plus, I learned so many other interesting crafts just being here at the folk school that, I gave up on the baskets, as did many others, and we moved on to other things. Don't come, examine this Joanne very carefully. But what we discovered in this independent study was that there was a real beauty in craftspeople who were each doing something different, but sharing, and it sort of in an engaging atmosphere. And that was lovely and a good way for us to continue.
Well, as Sally and I continued to come, we made more and more friends here, and it seems like it was not at all unusual when they heard that the Basketeers were going to be in town for a week, that evening parties would be planned, and we would be invited, and we met so many lovely people, including Susie Delorier and Barbara Joyner, and I was in conversation with them. Sally thought, this place is Brigadoon, does it really exist if we're not here? And my comment to Susie and Barbara was, it would be such a dream to live here. And they said, well, you know, it doesn't have to be a dream. You could just move here. And they started looking for property for us. And we would get these messages from them. We've got something we want you to see the next time you're in town. And they ended up inviting and introducing us to the folks that we eventually bought our land from. And we bought the lot in 2004. And we both retired around 2007 in Missouri. I was working for the state parks system at a historic site, an old grist mill on Covered Bridge. And we spent about a year renovating our house and to put it on the market, and it sold much quicker than we anticipated. And they wanted to close a whole lot quicker than we anticipated. And Sally and I are enablers of collecting stuff. We both enable each other, and we had a lot of stuff. And so we packed up all our stuff and moved it here and rented 5 storage units in Hayesville. and not only that, we packed all our winter clothes in the very back of one of those storage units. And when we, you know, Sally will talk a little bit about that first winter, but that was quite an event. And so 2008 is when we made the big move to Brasstown.
So as Jack said, we had storage units, but apparently one cannot live in a storage unit. So friends we had met here, Dee and Dave Richards, had a cabin up on Setawig, and they generously invited us to come stay in their cabin as long as we needed to. And we did remind them that we had 2 big dogs, and they still let us come. But we didn't want to take advantage of their generosity. We needed something affordable. I didn't say comfortable, I said affordable. So we bought an old, decrepit travel trailer that actually the woman who sold it to us had to get rid of because it was too old to stay in the trailer park where she lived.
And they told her she needed to upgrade or move out.
Yeah, she had to upgrade. So we were pretty excited to have the travel trailer moved out to the property where we were going to build our house. We were ready to move in, but we didn't realize that the fleas came with the travel trailer. So without any running water, it was a little bit of a challenge to deflea the travel trailer. And then we moved in, and we did not know that it was to be the rainiest autumn in recent history when we were in the trailer, nor the coldest winter in recent history. And inside the trailer, in the winter, the thermometer read 47 degrees. So, but moving here was such a dream, and there were challenges coming to rural life and small town. Jack and I made the concerted decision, we're going to find every bump in the road charming. And we still do.
Almost charmed us to death.
47 degrees, that's charming.
Well, we bought our property from Mary and Dave Ganas. Mary's here today. And I remember talking to them about moving here, and we were concerned. Would it be a letdown? Would we be disappointed? And they told us that not only had their expectations been met, but by far they had been exceeded when they moved here. They also moved here from Missouri, just like we did. And I remember Dave Ganas telling me, he said, you can wake up here in Brasstown any day of the week and think to yourself, today I would like to learn how to, and just fill in the blank. And by the end of the day, you meet someone that knows how to do it and is willing to help you learn. And, who could ask for a better environment, a better community to live in than that? That's just, We're incredibly grateful for that. And so we built our house, and I have my dream workshop. My workshop in Missouri was in the basement, and I have a wonderful shop connected to the garage. Sally has a beautiful fiber studio down in the basement that we modeled after the wet room here on campus. And we've got land for our dogs to run around, and we have wonderful neighbors in this community where we are. And we've lived there since 2008. And we both teach from time to time or assist other classes. And I've also served on the board for a few years. And there's several former board members and current board members. And that's been a real joy and honor for me, especially to be involved with that during the 100th anniversary of the school.
So the Basketeers agreed with the staff last summer that maybe having the term Basketeer might be a little misleading. Someone looking at the catalog might think we actually made baskets when no one does. So this year, this July, the name will be changed as Open Studio, and all are welcome. Since that first year, in 1986, Ida Palmer Ball and I have been together here in Brasstown every summer. Most of that was at the folk school, but when the folk school was closed for the pandemic, Ida got in her car and came and stayed at my house, and we distanced within my house and studio and still work together. So this year will mark year 41 for Ida and me to be together. And then 40 years here at the folk school. It's been a lovely gift that the folk school has given us to be able to continue not only reunion, but bringing new people into the friendship. Ida is now in Frankfort, Kentucky. Terrell is now in Sweetwater, Tennessee. He moved from Texas to Tennessee. Betsy, one of the original 5, is in a memory care unit now near her daughters up in the Northeast, and we stay in touch with her daughters. And you know where Jack and I are. We're right here. I added up, I've become kind of the historian of the group. My first time here in 1986, I began journaling. And I decided that I would keep my time at the folk school, the journals, separate from my day-to-day journals. So, this represents every day I've been at the folk school. You're welcome to come up and see everything else. This is tied up for a reason. I'm just showing you the stack.
I don't even read those.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Well, we've seen a lot of changes here at the folk school. I see David Lyden back there. He's kind of a folk school historian. There was a period when they had a program going for homesteading, and I think they kind of referred to that as the hippie period. And then for a while we had a lot of elder hostel folks here, and I remember teaching several classes several times where there were elder hostel students. Wonderful stories. I heard a story from a gentleman who had come over here as a child from Italy. His father was a stone cutter, finally sent for him, and in the course of coming to the United States, his father passed away, and he came into New York City completely on his own as a child. And what an amazing person to work through that. Between the two of us, we've lived through 6 directors here at the folk school, and I am so incredibly pleased to have the fine director, Bethany Cheney, that we have now, who, the 100th anniversary, and we have a woman leading the school. I think there's something right about that. When we were looking through some of the registration materials that we received when Sally first came in '86, they only allowed smoking in the living room in the Keith house. We all ate down in the basement. That was when the basement of this building was still the dining hall. I remember coming the first several years, and Sunday night you would queue up at a payphone so that you could call home and let your parent, or I mean your spouse or your family or friends know that you had made it safely to the folk school. And there was something really nice about being totally cut off from the media for a week. I miss that a little bit now, to be honest with you. But the changes that I've seen at the folk school, for the most part, I think have been incredibly positive. And we have a staff now that we have this young exuberance in the staff here. I feel so good about the folks that are carrying this school forward to the next 100 years. And I think Sally and I are both incredibly grateful for being here to be experiencing this in our journey here in Brasstown.
Jack just said one word that kept cropping up in the last week or 10 days as we got out our boxes of stuff and started preparing to talk, and that was gratitude. Another is serendipity. Our lives have had serendipities, and our response is gratitude. When I met Jack, I was very taken with many things. I was taken with the beautiful way he treated his daughter with such respect. But something else I was taken with was I saw the first time I visited his home. And on the living room wall, his decor was one rubber chicken. It's like, someone said, didn't that scare you away? No, it's like, this man is secure in his sense of self. And he has a sense of humor. We won't even go there. So I fell in love with Jack and his rubber chicken, and we were able to take our second honeymoon to the Rubber Chicken Museum in Seattle, Washington. And here's our photo with the world's largest rubber chicken. We have quite a collection. It's extensive, but we do not have the smallest nor the largest rubber chicken in existence. We're working on it. We're working on it. So, that's our love story.
And the one thing I wanted to add is in terms of gratitude, I'm incredibly grateful to have Sally Blankenship as my partner for going on 34 years now.
If I hadn't gotten that dulcimer kit, it never would have happened. Yeah. I knew he needed to get to know me.
Thank you, Lynn McSpadden.
We don't get tired of talking about it, but we'll hush now. And
anyone have any questions?